Every time you open Google, you see 10%. The other 90% is the Darknet. Its first lines were written at the headquarters of U.S. Naval Intelligence. There are no adverts there. There are no algorithms. Your name is not there. My name is Mr. Dark Web, and today I'm going to show you what's on the other side of the internet. The internet is an iceberg, 10% above water, the rest below. And that's not a metaphor, it's architecture. What you see every day, news, social media, online shops, video hosting sites, all of this is called the surface web. Everything that is indexed by search engines, everything that can be found by typing a query into Google or Yandex. According to various estimates, this represents between 4 and 10% of the entire internet. The rest is underwater. Just below the surface begins the deep web. And here it is important to understand one thing. The deep web is not something criminal. It is simply everything that is hidden from search engines. Your email inbox is the deep web. Your online bank is too. Medical records and clinic databases, corporate intranets, closed forums, academic databases that cost thousands of pounds a year to access. All of this exists, all of this works, but Google doesn't know about it, and it shouldn't. According to the most conservative estimates, the deep web accounts for about 90% of the entire internet. Some researchers say 96%. No one knows the exact figure because measuring something that is not indexed is about as difficult as counting all the grains of sand on all the beaches in the world. But there is another layer, the deepest, the darkest, dark web. The dark web isn't just stuff that's hidden from Google, it's stuff that's actively hiding. Websites that only exist on special networks, servers whose location can't be figured out, addresses that look like random strings of characters and end in .onion instead of the usual .com or .ru. To get there, knowing the address is not enough, you need a special browser, a special connection, special knowledge, and this is where it gets really interesting. It is commonly believed that the Darknet is something marginal, the basement of the internet, where drugs, stolen credit cards, and fake passports are traded. And yes, all of this is there. According to research, about 57% of websites on the Darknet are linked to illegal activities. But that means 43%. No. Journalists work on the Darknet, receiving leaks from informants. Political dissidents from countries where posting the wrong thing on social media can land you in prison communicate there. Scientists exchange data that they do not want to show to corporations before publication. And there, oddly enough, are some of the most secure communication channels on the planet. But where did all this come from? Who built this parallel network? And why? The answer to this question will surprise you. Because the Darknet was not created by hackers, not by anarchists, not by CryptoPunks from the 90s. It was created by people in uniform, with access to state secrets, using American taxpayers' money, and they are still funding it. The year 1995, Washington District of Columbia, United States Naval Research Laboratory. In one of the offices, 3 scientists are discussing a problem that most people at that time did not even think about. The internet is becoming public, commercial, global, and this creates a threat that few people understand. Their names were Paul Siverson, Michael Reed, and David Goldschlag, a mathematician and 2 computer science specialists. Their task sounded simple: figure out how American intelligence could use the open internet without revealing itself. The problem was this: every connection to the internet leaves a trace. When you visit a website, That website's server sees your IP address. That address can be used to identify your internet service provider. Your ISP can be used to determine your approximate location. And if someone has access to your ISP's logs, they can find your exact address and the name of the connection owner. For the average user, this is a minor issue. For an intelligence agent working undercover somewhere in a hostile country, it is a death sentence. Imagine, an agent at the embassy of a hostile state needs to send a report to headquarters. He connects to the internet, and the local security services instantly see that someone in that area is sending encrypted data to servers in Virginia. Encryption won't help. The very fact of the connection gives him away. It was necessary to devise a system where no one, neither the provider, nor the government, nor the server itself to which the connection is made, could determine where the request came from. And 3 scientists from the Naval Laboratory did just that. They called it onion routing, and the principle was ingeniously simple. Imagine that you want to send a letter, but you don't want anyone to know who sent it. You take an envelope and put the letter inside. Then you take a second, larger envelope and put the first one inside it. Then a third one and put the second one inside it. Each envelope has the address of the next recipient, but only the person who opens that particular envelope will see it. The first person receives the outer envelope. They only see the return address of the person who gave it to them, and the address where the next envelope should be delivered. They take it there and pass it on. The second person opens it, sees their part of the information, and also only one piece, and so on. By the time the letter reaches its destination, none of the intermediaries know the full picture. The first one does not know where the letter is ultimately going. The last one does not know where it came from. And those in the middle know neither one thing nor the other. The layers of envelopes are like the layers of an onion, hence the name. In the digital world, envelopes are replaced by encryption. Postmen are replaced by servers scattered around the world. Each server removes one layer of encryption, sees the address of the next server, and forwards it on. 3 nodes, 3 layers, complete anonymity. By 2002, the project was ready for public release. And here the story takes an unexpected turn. The military decided to release the code into the public domain. At first glance, it seemed crazy. Why give your enemies a tool that you had created for yourself? But the logic was ironclad. An anonymous network used only by American intelligence agencies is useless. If only military traffic leaves the network, the very fact that this network is being used gives it away. It's like wearing a t-shirt that says, "I'm a spy." For the system to work, it must include ordinary people, journalists, activists, paranoids, criminals, anyone. The more diverse the traffic, the more difficult it is to identify the traffic that belongs to intelligence services. On the 20th of September 2002, the alpha version was released. The project was named Tor, the Onion Router. In 2004, the Naval Research Laboratory officially released the code under a free license. It was picked up by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the very organization that fights for digital rights. In 2006, the nonprofit organization the Tor Project was created, and this is where the paradox begins, which still exists today. The Tor Project is a nonprofit organization that fights for anonymity on the internet, protection from surveillance, and the right to privacy. It helps dissidents, journalists, and victims of domestic violence. And 80% of its budget, as of 2012, came from the U.S. government, from the State Department, from the National Science Foundation, from the very institutions that, in other contexts, are engaged in completely opposite activities. Today, the Tor network has thousands of nodes around the world. Millions of users pass through it every day. Some bypass censorship in Iran. Some read the news in China. Some buy things that cannot be bought on regular websites. And American military intelligence continues to maintain its anonymity among the crowd of all the others. But in 2011, something happened that the creators of Tor definitely did not plan for. A young man from Texas opened his laptop and created a website that would change everything. A website that would show the world what an anonymous network is truly capable of. He called it Silk Road. And for the next 2 years, the FBI will try to figure out who is behind this. The year is 2011. Somewhere in Austin, Texas, a 26-year-old man with a degree in physics is sitting at his laptop. He has just failed several business projects. He tried to sell books online. It didn't work out. He launched a video game startup, also a failure. His name is Ross Ulbricht, and now he is writing code that will change the history of the internet. Ulbricht was a libertarian, one of those who believed that the state should not tell people what to buy, sell, or consume, that the free market will solve everything better than any laws, that adults have the right to control their own bodies and their own money. And he had an idea. What if we created a marketplace where you could buy and sell anything? No middlemen, no banks, no government. A marketplace where the seller doesn't know the buyer doesn't know the seller, and neither of them knows where the server that runs it all is located. The technology for this already existed. Tor provided anonymous connections. Bitcoin, which appeared in 2009, allowed money to be transferred without bank accounts. All that remained was to connect the two. In February 2011, the website went live. Ulbricht named it Silk Road, after the ancient trade route that connected the East and West. First, they sold mushrooms there. Then marijuana appeared. Then everything else. Cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, prescription drugs without prescriptions, fake documents, hacking services. But there was one thing that Ulbricht categorically forbade. Nothing that caused harm without consent. No weapons, no stolen data, no child pornography. Anarchy had its own rules too. Ulbricht took on the pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts. This was a reference to the film The Princess Bride, in which this was the name of a legendary pirate, passed down from one captain to another. It was a hint that anyone could be hiding behind the mask, or several people in turn. The website worked simply. The seller registered, listed the goods, and indicated the price in bitcoins. Buyers found goods using the internal search function and paid via an escrow system. The money was frozen in a Silk Road account until receipt was confirmed. After that, the seller received payment and Silk Road received a commission, between 8 and 15% of each transaction. Reviews, ratings, reputation system. Everything is just like on regular marketplaces. Only instead of books and electronics, there are substances that carry real prison sentences in most countries. And it worked. By the summer of 2011, Gawker, a popular news site at the time, wrote about Silk Road. The headline was straightforward, an underground website where you can buy any drug. Traffic skyrocketed. Over the next 2 years, Silk Road handled transactions worth the equivalent of 0.2 billion. 957,000 registered users, nearly 4,000 sellers, around 13,000 active drug listings at any given time. It was Amazon for illegal substances. Senator Chuck Schumer demanded that the site be shut down immediately, and its creators arrested. The Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security were all ordered to find the notorious pirate Roberts. But there was one problem. No one knew who it was. No one knew where the server was located. No one could even track which country the site was being managed from. Tor was doing its job. For 2 years, federal agents tried to break through the wall of anonymity. They planted their people undercover, they made test purchases, they analyzed Bitcoin flows, they looked for any clue, and in the end, they found her. Not in the code, not in cryptography, not in technology, in human error. Gary Alford was not a programmer or a hacker. He worked for the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, IRS. His specialization was financial investigations, tracking where money goes, looking for discrepancies, finding those who think they are hiding. In 2013, he was brought in on the Silk Road case, and he did what cybersecurity experts hadn't thought to do. He just Googled it. Alford began searching for the earliest mentions of Silk Road on the internet. Not on the website itself. Everything there was anonymous. But on regular forums, on the open web. Who was the first to write about this project? Who advertised it when no one knew about it yet? He found a post from January 2011. A user with the nickname Altoid was promoting a new anonymous marketplace on a forum dedicated to drugs. Then the same Altoid appeared on another forum, this time with a question about programming. And in this post, he left his contact email address. It was a mistake made 2 years ago, a trifle that Ulbricht himself had surely long forgotten. One post on a forum, one line with a real email address. That was enough. Then everything happened quickly. Agents began surveillance on Ulbricht. They discovered that he lived in San Francisco. He often worked in public places, cafes, libraries, always with his laptop. The 1st of October, 2013, Glen Park Public Library, San Francisco. Agent Jared Deryegian from the Department of Homeland Security sat in a cafe across the street. By that point, he had been working undercover inside Silk Road for a year and a half. He had bought a moderator account, communicated with Dread Pirate Roberts, and carried out his orders. No one knew that the nickname Cirrus belonged to a federal agent. That day, Deryegian wrote to his boss in the Silk Road chat room. He asked him to check a message that required the administrator's attention. He needed to make sure that Ulbricht was logged into the system at that very moment. Ulbricht responded. He was online. Then everything happened in a matter of seconds. There were several other agents in the library. 2 of them, a man and a woman, began arguing loudly right next to Ulbricht. A staged family scene. A diversionary tactic. Ulbricht turned his head to see what was happening. At that moment, another agent grabbed his laptop and pushed it aside. Another put handcuffs on him. A third inserted a USB stick with special software that prevented the system from locking up into the USB port. The Silk Road chat was open on the laptop screen, the very same chat with Agent Deryegian. Ulbricht was logged in under the account name Dread Pirate Roberts. The game is over. During a search of his flat, they found entries in his personal diary where Ulbricht described in detail the creation and development of Silk Road. They found about 140,000 bitcoins. At that time, it was about $30 million. They found correspondence in which he discussed contract killings of people who threatened to reveal his identity. These murders were never proven. Perhaps the perpetrator simply deceived Ulbricht and took the money, but the very fact that it was discussed became part of the case. The trial was swift and ruthless. Guilty on all counts: drug trafficking, money laundering, hacking, and racketeering. On 29 May 2015, Judge Catherine Forrest handed down the sentence. 2 life sentences plus 40 years. No parole. Ulbricht was 30 years old. He spent the next 11 years in a maximum security prison, first in Florence, Colorado, then in Tucson, Arizona. His mother moved closer so she could visit him regularly, and then something happened that no one expected. On January 21st, 2025, 2 days after his inauguration, President Donald Trump signed an executive order granting Ross Ulbricht a full pardon. The Libertarian movement, which had campaigned for years for his release under the slogan "Free Ross," celebrated the victory. Ulbricht was released after 11 years and 3 months in prison. Silk Road has long been shut down. Others have appeared in its place: Silk Road 2, Alpha Bay, Hydra, and they too have been shut down one after another. Law enforcement agencies have learned to work with anonymous networks, but the networks themselves have not gone anywhere. And the main lesson of Ulbricht's story was not that anonymity can be breached, but how exactly it was breached. Not hacking, not supercomputers, not secret NSA programs. One post on the forum with a valid email address. The human factor, the weakest link in any security system. But Tor was just one network, the most famous, but not the only one. There are others, built on different principles, with different architecture, with a different level of protection, and almost no one knows about them. October 2001. While the whole world is discussing the terrorist attacks of 11 September and the impending war in Afghanistan, something else is happening in the quiet corners of the internet. A developer going by the pseudonym Lance James, known online as 0x90, is launching a project with an unassuming name, Invisible IRC Project. IP. Invisible IRC. The idea was simple. IRC is a protocol for real-time text communication, something like group chats, only from the 90s. The problem is that regular IRC is completely transparent. The server sees who is connected. Other users see your IP address. Your provider sees what you are writing. Lance James wanted to create an IRC where no one could see anyone else. An anonymous chat room for those who have something to hide. The project developed. Other developers joined it. And by 2003, it became clear that one chat room was not enough. Tor was already operating in the world. Freenet already existed. Something else was needed. Something that would solve problems that competitors had not solved. In the summer of 2003, a person using the pseudonym Grandom took control of the project and completely reimagined it. He rewrote the protocols, changed the architecture, and gave the project a new name: I2P Invisible Internet Project. And most importantly, he came up with a new routing principle. While Tor used an onion model, I2P worked on a garlic model. It sounds like a joke, but the difference is fundamental. In onion routing, your message is a single onion, a single data packet wrapped in several layers of encryption. Each node removes its layer, sees the address of the next node, and passes it on. Simple and elegant. But there is a problem. If someone observes the network long enough, they may notice patterns. Here is a packet that entered the network at one point. Here is a packet of similar size that exited at another point after a certain amount of time. Correlation, traffic analysis. Statistics are a formidable force. Garlic routing works differently. Imagine not a single bulb, but a whole head of garlic. Several cloves, each with its own layers packed together. One message is broken down into several parts. Cloves. Each part follows its own route. Each is encrypted separately, and only at the destination are they put back together. Now try to follow the trail. You can see that 5 packages of different sizes have gone somewhere in different directions, and 3 other packages have come from somewhere else entirely. Which ones are connected? Where does it start? Where does it end? Good luck. But that's not all. I2P differs fundamentally from Tor in its very philosophy. Tor is a tool for accessing the regular internet anonymously. You connect to the Tor network. Your traffic passes through nodes, and at the exit point it goes to a regular website, Google, Facebook, whatever. The exit node sees where you are going, but does not know who you are. The website sees that someone has come to it from the Tor network, but does not know where from. I2P is structured differently. It is a closed network. You do not go outside. You remain inside. All websites and services are only available to these who are also on I2P. Such sites are called EEP sites, short for Encrypted End-to-End Persistent Sites. Their addresses end in .I2P and look like a random set of characters. They cannot be opened in a regular browser. They cannot be found through Google. They exist only for those who are inside, and everyone who connects to I2P automatically becomes part of the infrastructure. Your computer is a network node. Other people's traffic passes through you, just as your traffic passes through others. Everyone is equal. Everyone is both a user and a router at the same time. This makes I2P incredibly resilient. There are no central servers that can be shut down. There is no list of nodes that can be blocked. The network is distributed among all participants, and as long as at least some of them are online, it works. But there is a downside. I2P is slower than Tor. It is more difficult to set up. It has fewer users, which means less traffic to mask, and it is almost completely isolated from the regular internet. For most people, this is a disadvantage. For those who need true invisibility, it is an advantage. Today, I2P hosts forums, email services, file sharing services, and even its own torrent tracker. It's a small parallel internet with its own rules and inhabitants, and few people know about him. But there is an even older network, a network that appeared before Tor, before I2P. A network where data is not just transmitted anonymously, it exists forever, even if the person who created it is long gone. The year 1999. Edinburgh, Scotland, University. A 22-year-old student at the Faculty of Computer Science is preparing his thesis. His name is Ian Clark, and he has an idea that won't leave him alone. The internet is becoming centralized. Those who control servers have more and more power. If you want to publish something, you need hosting. Hosting can be disabled. Domain names can be taken away. Content can be deleted by court order, at the request of the government, or following a complaint from a corporation. What if we created a system where nothing could be deleted? Where data belonged not to servers, but to the network itself? Where information, once published, existed as long as there was at least one computer willing to store it? In March 2000, Clark published his work. It was called Freenet, a distributed anonymous information storage and retrieval system. The article became the most cited work in computer science that year. The principle was revolutionary. Freenet is not just a network for transferring data. It is a distributed storage system. Each participant gives up part of their hard drive for shared use. When you publish a file, It is broken down into encrypted fragments and distributed across other users' computers. You yourself do not know whose data is stored on your drive. It is encrypted. And no one knows whose drives your data is stored on. Want to get a file? Send a request to the network. It is transmitted from node to node until it finds the necessary fragments. The fragments are collected, decrypted, and you receive the data. No one knows who requested it, no one knows who published it, and most importantly, no one can delete it. Even the author. This is an important point. On the regular internet, you can delete your post, your photo, your file. On Freenet, you cannot. Once you publish something, you lose control. Data lives its own life, is copied between nodes, and exists for as long as there is demand for it. Popular files automatically get more copies. The network adapts to demand. Unpopular ones are gradually pushed out when space is needed for something new. It's like natural selection. What survives is what is in demand. But Clark understood that decentralization alone was not enough. If the government knows you are using Freenet, that is already suspicious. In some countries, the mere fact of using such software can be grounds for prosecution. And in the year 2008, the Darknet regime appeared. Freenet usually operates in open mode. Your node connects to other nodes automatically, finding them through a shared directory. This is fast, but potentially vulnerable. An outside observer can see that you are connecting to known Freenet nodes. In Darknet mode, you only connect to people you know personally, to friends, to people you trust. Your friend only knows you and their friends. No one sees the whole picture. Even if one node is compromised, the attacker can only see the closest neighbors, but cannot trace the chain further. This works thanks to the mathematical principle of the small world. Social connections between people form networks with special properties. There are usually no more than 6 handshakes between any 2 people on the planet. This means that even a network of personal contacts can be global and effective. In 2023, the project was renamed Hyphenet to distinguish it from other products with similar names. But the essence remained the same: a library that cannot be burned. Other technologies with similar ideas developed in parallel. IPFS, Interplanetary File System, an ambitious name for an ambitious project. Instead of the usual web addresses that point to a specific server, IPFS uses addresses that point to the content itself. Not, where is the file located, but what is this file? If one source is unavailable, the system will automatically find the same file elsewhere. ZeroNet is a network that combines the ideas of Bitcoin and BitTorrent. Websites are stored on visitors' computers. The more popular a website is, the more people store it. The author signs updates with a cryptographic key. Everything works without servers, without hosting, without a single point of failure. Decentralization, distribution, censorship resistance. All these projects are united by one idea. The internet is too important to depend on someone's permission. Information must be free, and technology must guarantee this, not with laws that can be changed, but with mathematics that cannot be changed. But every tool has 2 sides. You can use a hammer to drive in a nail, or you can use it for something else. Networks created to protect dissidents and journalists are also used by criminals. Repositories designed to preserve knowledge also store things that would be better off disappearing. This is an inevitable paradox. Technology does not distinguish between intentions. It simply works. And among those who understood this before others were people who decided to use anonymous networks for something that changed the very way we learn the truth. 11th of January, 2013. New York, an apartment in Brooklyn. 26-year-old programmer Aaron Swartz has been found dead. Suicide. A few weeks before his trial, where he faced up to 35 years in prison for downloading academic articles from the paid database JSOR. Swartz was a child prodigy. At 14, he participated in the development of RSS, a technology that is still used today for news subscriptions. At 19, he co-founded Reddit. He fought for open access to scientific knowledge, against internet censorship, and for freedom of information. And a few months before his death, he was working on a project that almost no one knew about. The project was called Dead Drop. Like in spy films, a place where an agent leaves documents and a contact person picks them up later. No one sees anyone. No one knows anyone. Only now it worked via the internet, via Tor. The idea was simple and powerful. Journalists need sources. Sources need protection. Email is not secure. It can be intercepted, tracked, and used as evidence. The telephone is even less secure. Face-to-face meetings are risky for both parties. Dead Drop solved this problem. The informant visits a special website via Tor. They upload documents. They receive a random code name, a set of words that only they know. No names, no addresses, no traces. The journalist on the other side receives the documents on an isolated computer that is never connected to the internet. He reads them. He checks them. If he needs to ask questions, he writes a reply that the informant will see when he logs in again under his codename. Two people communicate without knowing each other. The server does not store logs. Even if it is seized, there is nothing there that would indicate the source. Swartz developed the prototype together with journalist Kevin Poulsen, a former hacker who was once wanted by the FBI and later became editor of Wired. They were assisted by security specialist James Dolan. A month after Swartz's death, the New Yorker launched a system called Strongbox, the first public implementation of his idea. In October 2013, the Freedom of the Press Foundation took the project under its wing and renamed it Secure Drop. Today, Secure Drop is used by dozens of the world's largest publications: The New York Times, The Washington Post, The Guardian, Der Spiegel, Le Monde. Anyone in any country can anonymously send documents to journalists, and the system will do everything possible to ensure that they cannot be traced. This is a legal darknet, a darknet that protects not criminals, but those who risk everything to tell the truth. But Secure Drop did not appear out of nowhere. Several years before its launch, the world had already learned what happens when secret documents become publicly available. The year is 2006, Iceland. Australian programmer and hacker Julian Assange, together with a group of like-minded individuals, launches the WikiLeaks project. The idea is the same, an anonymous platform for leaks. But the approach is different. Secure Drop forwards documents to journalists, who review and publish them according to their own rules. WikiLeaks publishes them itself. No intermediaries, no editing, sometimes without censoring personal data. In 2010, WikiLeaks published 400,000 secret documents about the war in Iraq. Then it published correspondence between American diplomats. Then it published materials about Guantanamo. Each publication caused an international scandal. The source of some of these leaks was Chelsea Manning, a military intelligence analyst who copied the files onto a disk labeled Lady Gaga and passed them on to WikiLeaks. Manning was arrested and tried. She was sentenced to 35 years. Then Obama commuted her sentence. She was released in 2017. WikiLeaks has become a symbol. For some, it symbolizes freedom of information and the fight against state secrecy. For others, it symbolizes irresponsible leaks that endanger people's lives. Critics pointed out that WikiLeaks publishes the personal data of ordinary citizens. It does not protect its sources as reliably as it promises. Assange himself is opaque in his methods and motives. But WikiLeaks proved one thing for sure: anonymous networks work. You can be an analyst at a secret military base, copy hundreds of thousands of documents, and the world will learn their contents before anyone figures out where the leak came from. The German newspaper Die Zeit went its own way. Their briefcast platform, Mailbox, was integrated into the editorial office. Journalists who received documents were liable under press laws. This added legal protection for both sources and the publication. Swiss SRF, Dutch NRC, Belgian Le Soir, more and more publications created their own channels for anonymous leaks. They all used Tor. They all relied on the very technology that was created 20 years ago for American military intelligence. The circle was complete. The tool designed to protect spies now protected those who exposed state secrets. This is the main paradox of the Darknet. It is neither good nor bad. It is a tool, like a knife, like fire, like the internet itself. The only question is who is holding it.
Let's go back to where we started. Every time you open Google, you see 10% of the internet, maybe 5. No one knows the exact figure, because the rest cannot be measured using conventional methods. Beyond the search bar, there is another world, with different rules, with different addresses, with different people. According to data for 2025, the Tor network serves more than 3 million users daily. Germany, the United States, India, Finland, Russia. The geography is vast. Some bypass censorship. Some protect sources. Some buy what cannot be bought legally. Some simply want to prevent corporations from knowing which websites they visit. 57% of websites on the Darknet are linked to illegal activities. This is according to research data. Drugs, weapons, data theft, hacking services, all of these exist and thrive. But 43%? No. The Darknet hosts libraries with books that are banned in certain countries, forums for political discussions that are impossible under authoritarian regimes, support services for victims of domestic violence who do not want their abusers to track them down via their IP address, platforms for journalists and their sources. There are search engines. AMIA filters illegal content and is suitable for researchers. Torch indexes millions of uncensored pages with no security guarantees. HighStack offers premium tools for analysts who monitor threats. There is an economy there. Markets that appear and disappear. Silk Road was shut down, and Silk Road 2 appeared. It was shut down, and Alphabay appeared. Alphabay was shut down, and Hydra appeared. In 2022, Hydra, the largest Russian-language marketplace, was shut down. A month later, new ones appeared. It's like the Hydra from mythology. Cut off one head, and 2 more grow back. Law enforcement agencies are learning to work with this world. Operation Onimus in 2014. Operation Bayonet in 2017. Operation Dark Hunter in 2021. Hundreds of arrests, millions of dollars in cryptocurrency confiscated. But the networks remain because they are decentralized, because they cannot be shut down at a single point, because technology is not subject to jurisdiction. And now for the main question, which I wanted to address from the outset. Is the Darknet a threat or a protection? A weapon for criminals or a shield for the oppressed?
The answer is awkward. Both. At the same time, the same network that a drug dealer uses to sell his merchandise allows a journalist in Iran to publish reports that would get him executed at home. The same protocol that hides a pedophile protects a victim of domestic violence planning to escape. The same anonymity that hides a hacker allows a whistleblower to expose corruption in government. Technology is neutral. It does not take sides. It simply works. And this presents us with a choice that we as a society have yet to make. Anonymous networks can be banned. Tor, I2P, and everything else can be criminalized. Some countries are trying to do this. China blocks them, Russia blocks them, Iran blocks them, but people circumvent the blocks. Through bridges, through proxies, through thousands of methods that are devised faster than they can be banned, one can accept that anonymity exists, that it is necessary, that the price for the freedom of journalists and dissidents is the existence of platforms that are used by criminals. It's an unpleasant compromise, but perhaps the only honest one, because the alternative is the internet, where your every move is tracked, where every word is recorded, where privacy is a privilege granted and revoked by those who control the infrastructure. And if you think that's an exaggeration, look at countries where Tor is banned. Look at what happens there to those who say the wrong thing. My name is Mr. Dark Web. I have shown you what lies beyond the internet. Networks created by the military, markets built by libertarians, libraries that cannot be burned, mailboxes that save lives. All of this exists right now. It's working right now. Just a few clicks away from you. The internet is not what it seems. It is not a shop window or a news feed. It is an iceberg, 90% of which is hidden beneath the water. The question is not whether it is good or bad. The question is whether you are ready to see the whole picture. Today, it takes the special services 5 minutes to find you. They don't need your IP address or your name. All they need is 5 minutes to look at how you write messages and how you read articles on websites. My name is Mr. Dark Web, and today I will show you why anonymity is a myth in the year 2026. I have been researching the Darknet for a long time. I study schemes, analyze special service operations, and dig through leaks and court documents. Over the past year, I have noticed something that has made me feel truly uncomfortable. Previously, when I analyzed stories about arrests of platform administrators, hackers, sellers, there was almost always a specific mistake. Someone used their personal email, someone exposed their IP address, someone bragged on social media. The human factor, stupidity, greed. It was all understandable and logical, but something has changed in the last couple of years. I started coming across cases where people seem to be doing everything right. They changed devices. They used Tor. They communicated only through encrypted channels. They left no digital traces, no name, no photos, no links to the real world, and yet they were still found. And not because of a single mistake. They found him, through the way he typed, through the pauses between keystrokes, through the way he turned pages, through microscopic features of the device that he was unaware of. When I started digging deeper, the picture became even bleaker. It turned out that the tools that billions of people use for protection, VPNs, Tor, cryptocurrencies, don't work the way everyone thinks they do in 2026. Some of them aren't just useless. They've become perfect traps. By routing all your traffic through a single point, you're not hiding. You're creating the perfect database about yourself. And someone is reading that database. In the year 2026, surveillance technology reached a whole new level. They no longer search for your IP address. They don't hack your password. They analyze you, your physiology, your habits, the microscopic defects of your iron, and they build a profile that you can't get rid of, because that profile is you. Today, I will guide you through the 4 layers of this system. Each subsequent layer is deeper and more frightening than the previous one. By the end of this investigation, you will understand one simple thing. In today's world, it is not your computer that gives you away. It is your own brain. But first, let's figure out what you trust right now. Let's start with the most obvious, with what 1.5 billion people on the planet use, VPN. The idea is simple and appealing. You turn on the app, your traffic is encrypted and goes through a remote server. Your ISP cannot see where you're going. Websites cannot see your real address. You are invisible. That's what the ad says. Now, here's how it actually works. When you turn on a VPN, you take all your internet traffic, every website, every message, every query, and voluntarily route it through a single point, through a single server owned by a single company. And that company sees everything, absolutely everything, every second of your digital life. You haven't hidden. You've just changed who is watching you. Before, it was your ISP. Now, it's a VPN service that promises not to keep logs. But promises are not guarantees, and court orders are not requests. Cybersecurity experts have long compared the situation to the Promise program from the 1980s, when American intelligence agencies deliberately embedded backdoors into popular software that was then sold to governments around the world. The scheme is the same. Give people a convenient tool, and they will bring you their data themselves. But let's say you don't trust VPNs. You go further. You launch Tor. Tor, the onion router. Your traffic is encrypted 3 times and passes through 3 random servers around the world before reaching its destination. No one, not a single node in the chain, can see who you are and where you are going at the same time. This is the foundation on which the entire Darknet is built. Tens of thousands of hidden services, platforms, forums, libraries. People trust Tor like a fortress. And this is where the story that changed everything begins. In 2019, a platform appeared on the Tor network that would later be called one of the largest of its kind. In 2 years, more than 400,000 users registered on it. The administrator, known on the network by a single pseudonym, considered himself untouchable. He did not use the regular internet to communicate with the platform. He communicated exclusively through Ricochet, a messenger that worked within Tor from node to node without access to the open network. It seemed like perfect protection. The German Federal Criminal Police Office, BKA, thought otherwise. What they did sounds like something out of science fiction, but it is documented in the case files and confirmed by experts from the Chaos Computer Club, one of Europe's oldest hacker organizations. The BKA rented several hundred servers and placed them on the Tor network as normal nodes. Fast, reliable, with good bandwidth. Exactly the kind that the Tor system prioritizes. And then they waited. The principle was as follows. Investigators knew exactly when they sent a message to the administrator via Ricochet. They controlled the point of departure. At the same time, they monitored hundreds of their nodes within the network, recording each data packet, its size and transit time. If at the same moment a message of a certain size was sent, one of the monitored nodes recorded a packet of a similar size, that was a lead. Not proof. A lead. But Tor changes routes every few minutes, so with each new message, the chain of nodes was rebuilt, and sooner or later, it was only a matter of time, the administrator's traffic passed through a node controlled by the police. Not once. Many times. And each time, the pattern became clearer. So they figured out the intermediate node, then the entry node. And knowing the entry node and the internet provider, all that remained was to ask the telecommunications company for data on which of its customers were connected to that node at specific times. The circle narrowed down to a few people. Then it was classic police work. In April 2021, the site was shut down. The administrator was arrested. In December 2022, he was sentenced to a long term of imprisonment. The Chaos Computer Club confirmed that the method works, and judging by the available data, this was not an isolated incident. German intelligence agencies have used timing analysis repeatedly, at least since 2017. But wait, that's just the beginning. Because what happened next, with another site, showed that the special services had learned not just to find people, they had learned to play their game. Early in the morning on June 20th, 2017, German police conducted simultaneous raids on the homes of two administrators of a large Darknet marketplace. At the same time, a group of Dutch police officers stormed a data center in Lithuania where the marketplace's servers were located. The operation was planned with surgical precision. German agents were to arrest the administrators at the exact moment when their laptops were open and unlocked. And they did just that. But the most striking thing is that they did not shut down the site. The Dutch police moved the servers to the Netherlands and took full control of the site. The administrators, sitting in their cells, handed over all their passwords and login details. The four moderators of the site did not even notice that anything had changed. For 27 days, Dutch police controlled one of the largest illegal marketplaces in the world. They intercepted every message. They recorded passwords in plain text. They modified the built-in encryption tool to save copies of all correspondence before encryption. They removed the tool for automatically deleting metadata from photos, and then deleted the entire image database, forcing sellers to re-upload their photos, this time with geolocation recorded on their phones. And then the second part of the plan kicked in. On July 4th, 2 weeks before the end of the operation, the FBI shut down Alphabay, the largest Darknet marketplace at the time. 250,000 listings, 40,000 sellers, hundreds of millions of dollars in turnover. Hundreds of thousands of users were left without their usual platform. They flocked to the only remaining large marketplace, the one that had been run by the Dutch police for 3 weeks. The number of sellers grew from 1,000 to 8,000 a day. 27,000 illegal transactions were monitored by law enforcement agencies. On July 20th, both sites were officially shut down. The operation was named Bayonet. The prosecutor stated that he had obtained approximately 10,000 addresses of buyers outside the Netherlands. In the Netherlands itself, the police visited 37 buyers. They simply knocked on their doors and showed them their order history. One was arrested on the spot. The rest were released with a warning and a single phrase that has since become legendary in the Darknet community. The head of the Dutch police's cybercrime unit told reporters at the time, "We want people to know that they are not anonymous on the Darknet. We are there too, and we can see them. Consider the scale. The police didn't just find one person. They ran an entire criminal ecosystem for a month, recording every move of every participant. Thousands of people, confident in their invisibility, made purchases, sent messages, downloaded files, and every action they took was stored in a folder of evidence. And all this is just the first layer, the simplest one. Because in both cases, the timing attack and Operation Bayonet, the special services were still working with traffic, with data moving across the network, with IP addresses, servers, and information packets. But what if I told you that there is a technology that doesn't need your traffic, that doesn't need your IP address, that doesn't need to know where you are or which server you use to connect to the internet? Technology that identifies you by the way your fingers touch the keyboard, by the millisecond pauses between keystrokes that you don't even notice. Timing attacks, server interception, traffic analysis, all of this works with data that moves across the network. Information packets, IP addresses, entry and exit points. Roughly speaking, the special services were not catching the person, but their connection. But at some point, and I can't say exactly when it became a system, the approach changed. A new question arose. What if we didn't touch the traffic at all? What if we didn't need to know where a person was coming from on the network? What if we could identify who they were by how they behaved? To help you understand what we are talking about, let's go back to a story that has become a textbook for everyone working in this field. The story of the man who created the first truly large-scale market on the Darknet. In 2011, a platform appeared on the Tor network that forever changed the perception of what can be bought on the internet. Its creator is well known to my viewers. I have dedicated an entire video on my channel to him and his empire. A young American with a degree in physics, he was an idealist, fascinated by the Austrian School of Economics and libertarian ideas. He believed he was building a free trade platform uncontrolled by the state. On his public LinkedIn page, he wrote that he wanted to use economic theory to combat coercion and aggression in society. His pseudonym on the Darknet is Dread Pirate Roberts. His real name is Ross Ulbricht, and he was caught not because Tor was weak, but because he himself turned out to be human. Ulbricht's mistakes were not a single accident. They were a chain of small clues, each of which meant nothing on its own, but together they painted a picture of him. It all started with the nickname Altoid. In January 2012, when the platform was just gaining momentum, someone using that nickname posted links to it on forums, essentially advertising the project. Tax investigator Gary Alford decided to check the simplest thing. Who was the first to mention the platform's address on the open internet? It turned out to be Altoid. Alford then found another post by the same Altoid, this time on a different forum, where he was looking for a programmer for a startup. This post included a contact email address, a personal one, with a real name and surname, but that was only the beginning. In March of that year, an account appeared on Stack Overflow, the largest website for programmers. The user asked a question: how to connect to the hidden Tor service via PHP. The question was asked under his real name, Ross Ulbricht. Less than a minute later, the user changed his name to Frosty, but the internet remembers everything. When the FBI later seized the site's server, they found code on it that was almost identical to the one the Stack Overflow community had shown user Frosty in response to his question. The circle was complete. There were other threads. Agents discovered that Ulbricht had ordered 9 fake documents from the site, with different names but his real photo and date of birth. The package was intercepted at the Canadian border. Investigators went to the address in San Francisco, and the door was opened by a young man whose face matched the photos on the fake IDs. On October 1st, 2013, FBI agents quietly entered a public library in the Glen Park neighborhood of San Francisco. Ulbricht was sitting at a table with his laptop open. One agent, posing as a salesperson on the site, was chatting with him at the time and gave the signal when Ulbricht logged into the admin panel. He was arrested with his laptop open, logged into the system under the administrator account. This story is included in every cybersecurity textbook, but it is usually presented as a story of human error. Like, he used his real email address, his own fault. He asked a question under his own name, his own fault. He ordered fake documents to his address, his own fault. All of that is true, but I want you to pay attention to something else. Ulbricht was found through his digital handwriting, not in a technical sense. At that time, technology had not yet advanced to the point of analyzing typing rhythms, but in a broader sense, he was betrayed by a set of unique behavioral habits. How he wrote code, what nicknames he used, how he formulated his thoughts, what ideas he promoted, and what forums he visited. Investigator Alford essentially conducted a manual analysis of digital behavior and found a pattern that linked the anonymous administrator to a real person. Now imagine that this process is automated. Instead of a single investigator manually comparing forum posts, a neural network analyzes not words but physiology, and it does so in real time. This is what is happening in the year 2026. The technology is called keystroke dynamics, and it's simpler than you think. When you type, the system measures 2 parameters. The first is dwell time, or how long you hold down a key. That is, how many milliseconds your finger presses the button before releasing it. The second is flight time, or the interval between when you release one key and press the next. These 2 numbers, for each pair of keys, create a unique rhythmic pattern. It is as individual as a fingerprint. You are not aware of this rhythm. You cannot control it. It is formed by the neuromotor patterns of your brain and remains stable even if you change keyboards. But that's just the beginning. Modern systems analyze more than just your keyboard. They look at how you move your mouse, micro pauses before clicking, what researchers call hesitation before pressing, cursor acceleration, non-linearity of routes, that is, the curvature of the trajectory along which your mouse moves towards the button, scrolling manner, fast or slow, smooth or jerky, with what frequency. Each of these parameters individually is noise, but together they create a profile that machine learning systems recognize with 99% accuracy. 99%. This is not theory. These are the results of studies published in peer-reviewed scientific journals. And now for the most important part. Imagine that you are using the regular internet without Tor and visiting your usual websites. Your typing, mouse movements, and page scrolling are recorded. Then you open the Tor browser and visit a site where you want to remain anonymous. If a tracker has access to data from both sessions, regular and anonymous, it can simply compare your behavioral profiles. The same typing rhythm, the same scrolling manner, the same hesitation before clicking. 2 profiles match, and your anonymity evaporates. Without a single hack, without a single IP address. But there is another level that few people talk about: cognitive biometrics. If you have a VR headset, and there are already hundreds of millions of them around the world. Then eye tracking can be used to analyze fixations and saccades, that is, rapid eye movements between points of focus. Based on this data, neural networks not only identify individuals, but, according to research, can also make medical diagnoses. For example, detecting attention deficit disorder with 92% accuracy. Your eyes, your breathing pattern, your heart rate, which can be measured through your smartphone camera by detecting micro changes in the color of your skin. All of this is data, and all of this data is unique. Now tell me, which VPN will protect you from this? But you know what worries me the most? It's not that these technologies exist, it's that they're invisible. You don't know that you're being profiled. There's no notification. There's no I agree checkbox. The website just quietly records how you type and move your mouse, using standard JavaScript that works in any browser, and you'll never know about it. But even if, by some miracle, you have learned to type with perfect rhythm, move the mouse in straight lines, and turn pages like a robot, they have another way to find you. And you definitely won't be able to hide from it. Because this time, it won't be your behavior that gives you away. It will be the hardware itself. There is one detail in the history of the largest Darknet marketplace that is often mentioned in passing, but which, in my opinion, is the most telling. Alphabay. By 2017, this platform had become the largest illegal marketplace in the history of the internet. More than 250,000 listings, 40,000 sellers. Turnover, hundreds of millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, drugs, weapons, malware, fake documents, stolen bank details, everything you can imagine, and much that you would rather not. Its creator was a 25-year-old Canadian named Alexander Kazes. Online, he was known as Alpha02. To the outside world, he was the CEO of EBX Technologies, a company that created websites for small businesses. To the Darknet, he was the king of underground trade. Kazes lived in Bangkok with his wife, owned several mansions in Thailand and Cyprus, drove a Lamborghini and Porsche, and had bank accounts in Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Antigua. Through offshore companies in Belize and Hong Kong, he bought real estate and even obtained citizenship in other countries. An unencrypted file was later found on his laptop with a complete inventory of all his assets. $12.5 million in real estate and cars, over $3 million in cash, and more than $7.5 million in cryptocurrency. But that's not the point. The point is how they found him. Kazes made a mistake that lasted 17 years, or, to be more precise, 3 years. In December 2014, when Alphabay had just launched, the system automatically sent welcome emails to new users. And in the header of these emails, not in the text, but in the technical header, which the average user doesn't even see, was an email address, Kazes' personal Hotmail account. This same address was linked to his PayPal account, his Canadian bank accounts, and his business, EBX Technologies. And even earlier, in 2008, when Kazes was 17, a user with the nickname Alpha02 left a post on a French technical forum. At the end of the post was a name, Alexander Kazes, and that same Hotmail address. A single thread stretched across the years. A post office box address, obtained free of charge, which could have been replaced in 30 seconds. But it wasn't replaced. The FBI and DEA spent years gathering evidence. When the time came to act, they planned the arrest with surgical precision. They didn't just want Kazes, they wanted his laptop, open and logged in, early in the morning on July 5th. 2017. Thai police cordoned off the area around a gated residential complex in Bangkok. Agents from the FBI and the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration watched the house. The plan was to create an incident that would force Casey's away from his computer, but not shut it down. The car crashed into the gate of his house. Casey's went out to see what had happened. At that moment, the agents entered. When they reached the bedroom, the laptop was on the table, open, unencrypted, logged into the Alphabet admin panel under the account name Admin. 7 days later, on July 12th, Casey was found dead in his cell. The official version was suicide. His wife later said that he had told her that it was better to die than to be extradited to the United States. I am telling this story not simply as a drama. I am telling it because it perfectly illustrates a principle that few people think about. Casey's believed that Tor, encryption, and the thousands of kilometers between him and American investigators would protect him. But it wasn't Tor that gave him away. It was an artifact, a technical trace in the letter's header that he left on the first day the site went live and forgot about. Now let's talk about what happens when traces are left not by a person, but by the device itself. Without your knowledge, without your involvement. I am about to say something that may seem paranoid to you, but it has been documented in dozens of scientific papers. Every electronic device on the planet is unique, not because you have configured it in your own way, but because random deviations occur during the production of microchips at the nanometer level, microscopic defects in the crystal structure that cannot be reproduced. And these defects create an imprint that cannot be erased because it is built into the very physics of the device. The first example is clock skew, or internal clock asynchrony. Every processor has a crystal oscillator, which is a clock frequency generator. No oscillator works perfectly. Each one has a tiny deviation from the reference frequency. This deviation is measured in millionths of a second, but it is unique to each chip. And it can be measured remotely over a network by analyzing the timestamps of data packets. You can change your IP address as much as you like, but your internal clock will still tick with the same unique error. The second is smartphone sensors. The accelerometer in your phone has unique linear deviations. The microphone has a unique frequency response. The speaker has its own distortion spectrum. And the most unpleasant thing is that data from these sensors can be accessed through a regular browser via JavaScript without any notification. The third, and perhaps the most frightening, is memory. Random access memory, or DRAM. There is a class of attacks called rowhammer that exploit the physical proximity of memory cells. When a single memory row is accessed repeatedly, neighboring cells begin to flip bits, changing zeros to ones and vice versa. The pattern of these flips is unique for each memory module. It depends on microscopic defects that occurred during production. This creates a 100% unique fingerprint of your device's RAM. You can reinstall your operating system, erase all your data, install a clean browser, enable VPN and Tor simultaneously. But the physics of your processor, your sensors, and your memory will remain the same. And if someone has taken that fingerprint once, they will recognize your device again, wherever you are, no matter what IP address you hide behind. And here I would like to make one important digression. Perhaps some of you are thinking, so what? I am not a criminal. I have nothing to hide. Let them monitor me. And there is logic in this. If you do not break the law, the special services have no reason to look for you. Do not commit crimes, and you will not have to hide. But here's what really worries me. These technologies don't distinguish between criminals and ordinary people. A journalist working on an investigation in a country with an authoritarian regime an activist fighting for human rights, a whistleblower trying to report corruption, or just a person who believes that their private life is their private life. They all end up in the same system, and they all have the same digital signature that cannot be erased. But even that is not the final layer, because there is something else, something you cannot get rid of, even if you destroy all your devices, even if you burn your laptop and throw your phone into the ocean. Your old transactions will remain forever in the blockchain, which never forgets anything. There is one myth about cryptocurrency that still persists. It goes like this: Bitcoin is anonymous money, digital cash. It is not tied to a name, a bank, or a country. Once sent, it is impossible to trace. This myth was not created by developers. It was created by people who wanted to believe in it. Sellers on Darknet marketplaces who needed a convenient way to accept payments. Buyers who needed to convince themselves that they would not be found. And an entire industry of services, mixers, tumblers, exchangers, that made billions from this belief. The truth is quite the opposite. Bitcoin is not an anonymous system. It is the most transparent financial system in human history. Every transaction, every transfer, every movement of funds is recorded in the blockchain. A public, immutable ledger accessible to anyone on the planet. Forever. No statute of limitations. No delete button. Yes, addresses in the blockchain are just strings of characters. They do not contain names, but they contain connections. Who sent what to whom, when, how much. And if even one address in the chain has ever been linked to a real person, through an exchange, through a currency converter, through any service that requires verification, the entire chain becomes readable. If not today, then in a year. If not in a year, then in 10 years. And that is exactly what happened to a man who had considered himself invisible for 10 years. In October 2011, a service called Bitcoin Fog appeared on the Darknet. It is a cryptocurrency mixer. The principle is simple. You send your Bitcoins to a common pool. They are mixed with other users' coins and then returned to you, but from different addresses, in different amounts, and with a time delay. The connection between the sender and the recipient is broken. At least that was the idea. Bitcoin Fog operated for 10 years, from 2011 to 2021. During this time, more than 1.2 million Bitcoins passed through the service, which was worth around $400 million at the time of the transactions. The main flow came from Darknet marketplaces such as Silk Road, Alphabay, and dozens of others. Drugs, identity theft, computer crimes. Bitcoin Fog was the oldest and most well-known mixer in the ecosystem, a kind of trusted institution. The investigation later established that the operator was Roman Sterlings, a 35-year-old citizen of Russia and Sweden. Sterling did not make the same mistakes as Casey's. He did not leave his personal email address in the subject lines of his emails. He did not flaunt his wealth on social media. He did not buy a Lamborghini. He was quiet, cautious, and technically savvy. Nevertheless, in April 2021, he was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport. How? The answer lies in the blockchain. In transactions that were 10 years old, investigators from the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, IRS Criminal Investigation, utilized software from Chainalysis. Their tool, Reactor, does what would take centuries to do manually. It analyzes millions of transactions on the blockchain, looks for patterns, clusters addresses belonging to the same owner, and reconstructs transfer chains, even if they have passed through mixers. In Sterling's case, investigators traced the chain back to its very beginning, to the moment Bitcoin fog was created. They discovered that Sterling used Liberty Reserve, a payment system that was shut down in 2013 for money laundering, to launch the service. They linked this payment to an account on the Mt. Gox exchange, the very same one that collapsed in 2014, and through Mt. Gox's records, they traced the real identity. Think about it. A transaction made in 2011 through a system that no longer exists on an exchange that has since gone bankrupt led to an arrest in 2021. 10 years. Blockchain stored this information for 10 years, and when the analysis technology became powerful enough, the file was revealed. At the trial, Sterling's lawyer called Chainalysis's methods pseudoscience. He claimed that their software had no known error rate, no peer-reviewed publications confirming its accuracy, and no transparent methodology. Another company in the same industry, CipherTrace, stated that after uploading the same data into its software, it found no evidence of Sterling's involvement. It didn't help. In March 2024, a federal court in Washington found Sterling guilty on all counts. The jury deliberated briefly. The judge ruled that Chainalysis's methodology meets the standards of reliability accepted in federal courts. This precedent can now be used in every future case involving blockchain analysis. And here's what that means for anyone who has ever used cryptocurrency. In 2025, the volume of illegal crypto transactions reached a historic high of $158 billion. Cryptocurrency has become a key infrastructure for circumventing sanctions. Entire state apparatuses use it to move funds. The damage from crypto fraud amounts to $17 billion. Scams have turned into an industry with a division of labor, phishing as a service providers, data brokers, and sellers of neural network-based tools. Fraud using artificial intelligence, deep fakes, language models, brings in 4.5 times more profit than traditional schemes. And each of these transactions is recorded on the blockchain forever. Some may say, but there is Monero. There are private coins. There are new mixers that are better than the old ones, perhaps. But Sterling's story has proven one thing. What seems impenetrable today may become completely transparent in 5 or 10 years. Analysis technologies are developing faster than concealment technologies, and blockchain is waiting patiently. It's in no hurry. Every transaction you have ever made is a line in a file that cannot be deleted. The question is not whether someone will read it. The question is when. So, let's summarize. We have gone through 4 layers in this story. The first is the network. VPN routes all your traffic through a single point of interception. Tor is vulnerable to timing attacks, and intelligence agencies have proven this in practice. Darknet sites can operate under police control for months without you even knowing it. The second is behavior. Your typing rhythm, the way you move the mouse and scroll through pages, create a unique profile that neural networks recognize with 99% accuracy. And this profile works through any browser, any VPN, any network. The third is hardware. Microscopic defects in your processor, sensors, and RAM create an imprint that cannot be erased because it is embedded in the very physics of the device. The fourth is blockchain. Every transaction is stored forever, and what is hidden behind mixers today may be revealed tomorrow by new analysis tools. And now, here is the question that a subscriber asked me, and which essentially started this investigation. Is it possible to truly disappear in the year 2026? I searched for the answer for a long time, I spoke to people in the cybersecurity field. I read interviews with former Secret Service agents. I studied forums where people discuss precisely this. Not how to commit a crime, but how to cease to exist in digital space. And here's what I found. A former intelligence officer said something in an interview that stuck in my mind. He said, "The problem isn't technology. The problem is that people try to disappear halfway. They delete their social media accounts but leave their bank accounts. They buy a new phone but call their old friends. They move to another city but connect to the internet under their own name. Half measures don't work. Either you disappear completely or you don't disappear at all. And in full, this is what it is." The first step is a psychological break, a complete rejection of your past life. Family, friends, colleagues, everything. Any contact with your former circle is a thread that can be pulled. One phone call to your mother, and the chain is restored. This is not a metaphor. This is exactly how operational search works. People don't change. They miss their loved ones. And this is the most reliable vulnerability of all. The second is legal shells. You don't live under a fake passport. That's a criminal offense and a surefire way to attract attention. Instead, you create a chain of trusts and corporate structures, LLCs, that rent accommodation, pay bills, and own property. Your name does not appear anywhere. You are a beneficiary hidden behind several layers of legal entities, like Kazi's with his offshore companies in Belize and Hong Kong, only without the Lamborghinis and social media posts. The third is a false trail. Experts say, never delete your data. Deleting it raised suspicion. It's like an empty flat with broken doors. It's immediately obvious that someone left in a hurry. Instead, you should bury it. You fill your digital profile with false but plausible information. False interests, false connections, false geolocations. You don't erase your tracks. You draw new ones on top of them, leading nowhere. The fourth is analog life. Complete rejection of smartphones. Cash only. Disposable push-button phones that are replaced every few weeks. Hundreds of virtual bank cards with fictitious names, each of which is used once or twice. No loyalty programs, no discount cards, no subscriptions. Every point of contact with the digital world is a potential hole in your defenses. Now imagine that you have done so. You have severed all ties with the past. You have created legal shells. You have filled your old profile with false information. You have switched to cash and a push-button telephone. Now imagine what your life looks like. You cannot call your parents. You cannot write to your friend. You cannot log into social media, not because it is prohibited, but because any login is a beacon. You cannot use a regular bank. You cannot order food through an app. You cannot call a taxi. You live in a flat rented in the name of a company registered in another jurisdiction. You pay for everything in cash, which you withdraw from cards registered to non-existent people. You change your phone every 2 weeks. And every day you wake up in a world where one careless step, one purchase out of old habit, one glance at a camera with facial recognition, one login to a Wi-Fi network you've used before, can wipe everything out. This is not life. It is survival. And no normal person can exist like this. And the most ironic thing is that even if you do all this, there is no guarantee that it will be enough. Because technology does not stand still. What seems like reliable protection today may turn out to be a long broken lock tomorrow. That's what happened with Tor. That's what happened with mixers. That's what happened with every tool that people thought was invulnerable. In 2026, surveillance technology shifted from analyzing external attributes, IP addresses, logins, names, to analyzing human physiology and the microscopic physics of human devices. In this reality, anonymity became an illusion, and attempts to achieve it using standard methods, VPN, Tor, cryptography, only attract the attention of global monitoring systems. Paradoxically, the new data protection laws work in exactly the same way. When you submit a request to delete your information, and such laws are already in force in California and the European Union, your request is entered into a centralized registry, and you automatically become a target of increased interest, a person who is actively trying to erase their footprint, which in itself is a footprint. My name is Mr. Dark Web, and if you've watched this far, you already know what many would prefer not to know. Anonymity as we imagined it, press a button, turn on a VPN, become invisible, no longer exists. Perhaps it never did. Technology has finally caught up with the illusion. The question that remains is not how to hide, but is it worth sacrificing everything that makes you human in order to try to disappear in a world that no longer allows it? Take care of yourself and think before you press the keys, because someone may already be counting the milliseconds between your keystrokes. It just so happens that people think there should be a king of the Darknet, some kind of personality, a legend who sits on the throne after Ulbricht, after Hydra, after everyone who got caught. But the truth is that today, there is no king of the Darknet. I spent several months investigating this and realized that there is more of a watcher. In 2017, 900 servers appeared inside the Tor network. No name, no contacts, no traces. At their peak, they passed every third connection of every user through themselves. Someone spent millions to deploy them. When they were discovered and removed, new ones appeared the next day. My name is Mr. Dark Web, and today I will answer the question, who controls the Darknet in 2026? The answer turned out to be scarier than any king. But first, let's figure out where this myth came from. The myth that one person controls the entire shadow network, and why right now, in the year 2026, this question has become a personal investigation for me. I have been working on the topic of the Darknet for several years, and during that time, I have been asked the same question hundreds of times. Who is in charge? Who is behind all this? People want a simple answer, a name, a pseudonym, a story about a lone genius in a hoodie who runs a shadow empire from his basement. It's a beautiful picture, and it used to be true. It all started with one man, Ross Ulbricht, and his Silk Road platform. We have a separate story about him on our channel, and he deserves this separate video. But here's what's important. Ulbricht set a precedent. He showed the world that one person, sitting at a laptop in a public library in San Francisco, could build an empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He was a judge, banker, and legislator all at once. He settled disputes between sellers, set the rules of trade, and collected a commission on every transaction. In essence, he was a king. The first, and as it turned out later, the last real king of the Darknet. And when the FBI shut down Silk Road in 2013, everyone waited for the next one. And then the next ones appeared. Alphabet, Hansa, Dream Market, Empire. Each time, someone took the throne. Each time, the forums buzzed, "Here he is, the new king," and each time the story ended the same way. Arrests, exit scams, server shutdowns. The throne was empty again and again. The cycle repeated itself with frightening regularity. The platform grew, gained trust, became a monopoly, and collapsed. Sometimes it was the special services. Sometimes it was the greed of the operators themselves, who simply disappeared with the user's money.
The most recent major example is Hydra, a Russian-language marketplace which served millions of users by the time it was shut down in 2022. Hydra was not just a platform, it was an entire ecosystem. It had its own currency exchange system, its own rules for verifying sellers, and its own security service that monitored the quality of goods. For the Russian-speaking segment of the Darknet, Hydra was a state within a state. Many considered it unsinkable, too big, too entrenched, too important to all market participants. But on the 5th of April 2022, the German Federal Police, together with the American Special Services, seized Hydra's servers, and once again, the throne was empty. After Hydra, the market fragmented completely. Torzon, Nemesis, and dozens of smaller platforms appeared, each trying to grab their piece of the pie. But none of them even came close to Hydra's scale. In mid-2025, Abacus, one of the largest marketplaces of that period, which had been growing rapidly after the fall of its predecessors, closed down. Most analysts believe that this was an exit scam. The operators simply disappeared with the money of buyers and sellers, as had happened dozens of times before. Sellers migrated to other platforms within a few days. No panic, no power vacuum, just another rotation in an endless cycle. And that's when I began to understand something important. The Darknet no longer needed a king. The ecosystem had become distributed. The elimination of one market no longer causes a collapse. It causes migration. Sellers move. Buyers adapt. Money flows. The system works without a center, like an organism that has had its head cut off but continues to move. When I realized this, my question changed. I stopped looking for a name. I started looking for a mechanism. Someone is watching all this chaos, after all. Someone sees how money moves, how platforms open and close, how millions of people enter and leave the anonymous network. It's just that this someone is no longer sitting on the throne. He is standing at the door. But just because there is no one on the throne does not mean that no one controls the network. It's just that control now looks very different. And it starts with how you access the Darknet. What if the one who holds the door to the Darknet is the real master? Not the one who trades inside, not the one who buys, but the one who stands at the entrance and exit and sees everyone who passes through. To understand what I'm talking about, I need to explain one thing: how Tor works. I'll make it as simple as possible. Imagine that you want to send a letter, but you want to do so without anyone knowing who you are or who you are writing to. You put the letter in an envelope, that envelope in another envelope, and that one in a third envelope. Each envelope is addressed to a different intermediary. The first intermediary removes the outer layer and passes it on. The second removes its layer. The third removes its layer and delivers the letter to the addressee. None of the intermediaries sees the whole picture. The first knows who you are but does not know where the letter is going. The last knows where it is going but does not know who sent it. This is the principle of Tor. 3 nodes: input, intermediate, output. 3 layers of encryption. Your traffic passes through each of them, and theoretically, no one can connect the sender to the recipient. Theoretically. Because in practice, one simple question arises: who controls these nodes? Tor is a network of volunteers.
Any person or organization can set up their own server and make it part of the network. As of mid-2025, there were about 8,000 active relays in the network. Of these, approximately 2,500 are exit nodes, the very last doors through which traffic leaves the anonymous network and enters the regular internet. And this is where it gets really interesting. When I began to study where these nodes are physically located, the picture became clear quite quickly. The top 3 countries in terms of the number of relays are Germany, the United States, and France. This is no secret. The data is public and available on the Tor Metrics website, where anyone can check it. But there is something more important. The vast majority of nodes are physically located in countries that are part of the 14 Eyes Intelligence Alliance. This is a coalition of states that have agreed to share electronic intelligence data. It includes the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and 9 other European countries. And it is on their territory that the servers through which the bulk of anonymous traffic passes are located. But even that is not the most alarming thing. The most alarming thing is a story that took place in 2017. It was then that a researcher working under the pseudonym Nusenu noticed a strange anomaly. Nodes without any contact details began to appear on the Tor network. This is not prohibited in itself, but it is unusual. Nusenu began to track them and eventually grouped them together under the codename KAX17. At its peak, KAX17 controlled more than 900 servers. To understand the scale, the entire Tor network at that time had about 9,000 to 10,000 nodes. That is, one unknown operator held about 1/10 of the entire infrastructure. But more importantly, these servers were not located in one place, but scattered across more than 50 autonomous systems around the world. This requires serious financial investment. We are talking about millions of dollars for server rental, traffic, and maintenance, without any visible financial return. Nusenu calculated the probabilities. At peak times, the chances of a Tor user landing on the KAX17 entry node were 16%. The probability of passing through their intermediate node was 35%, and through the exit node, about 5%. To put it simply, every 6th user began their journey through the anonymous network via a server belonging to an unknown operator, and every 3rd user passed through it along the way. When the Tor project team finally responded and removed the KAX17 nodes at the end of 2021, exactly what I described at the beginning happened. The next day, a new group of nameless relays appeared on the network. No contacts, no explanations, as if nothing had happened. So, who was behind KAX17? Nusenu stated outright that it did not resemble academic research. Scientists don't work for years, use more than 500 servers and 50 networks, and fight to weaken the rules for detecting malicious nodes on Tor mailing lists. The most likely version is the state, a special service that has the money, motivation, and technical expertise to carry out such an operation. And a recent study from 2025 only confirms the scale of the problem. Scientists have found that just 10 of the largest families of relays control more than 50% of all outgoing Tor traffic. Half of all data leaving the anonymous network passes through the servers of 10 operators, and no one knows for sure who these 10 are. But there is another layer here that makes the whole story truly absurd. Funding. The Tor project is a nonprofit organization registered in the United States. According to their financial report for the years 2023 to 2024, the total budget was $7,228,000. 35% of this came from the U.S. government. The largest single donor is the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor at the State Department. They allocated more than $2 million to projects related to expanding access to the free internet in China, Hong Kong, and Tibet. Do you understand what this means? The government, which spends billions on surveillance and hacking anonymous networks, is also the largest sponsor of the world's largest anonymous network. The right hand finances what the left hand is trying to destroy. And this is not a conspiracy theory. It is public data from tax returns. However, the situation became even more interesting in January 2025. Trump signed an executive order freezing foreign aid. The Open Technology Fund, an organization through which a significant portion of government funding for Tor, Signal, and other privacy tools was channeled, was hit hard. Carrie Lake, an advisor to the US AGM, called it a huge rot and burden on the American taxpayer. The OTF filed a lawsuit. The court ordered the payments to be restored, but the fact itself is telling. A tool used by millions of people around the world to circumvent censorship can be shut down with a stroke of a pen in Washington. Meanwhile, other sources of funding are growing. The VPN service Mulved now provides 19% of Tor's budget. Private donations account for almost 16%. The Swedish agency SIDA also contributes its share. Tor is trying to diversify and move away from dependence on any one country. But for now, the US government remains the biggest contributor. Nodes are doors. But I discovered that there are some who keep an eye not on doors, but on money. And that really got me thinking. On the Darknet, you can hide your face. You can change your alias, switch platforms, use 10 layers of encryption. But there is one thing that is almost impossible to hide: money. And when I switched from nodes to financial flows, the investigation reached a whole new level. For a long time, it was believed that cryptocurrency guaranteed anonymity. Bitcoin, then Monero, stablecoins. Each new tool was perceived as another shield between criminals and the law. For years, sellers on forums repeated the same mantra: crypto is untraceable. And people believed it. Thousands of people built their schemes on this belief. They transferred millions, confident that digital coins could not be traced. But in 2026, this statement sounds about as convincing as the claim that the Earth is flat. Blockchain is not anonymity. Blockchain is the most transparent ledger in human history. Every transaction is recorded forever. Every movement of funds is visible to everyone. The only question is whether anyone can read this ledger. And in 2026, they can. In January 2026, Chainalysis published its annual report on crypto crime. Chainalysis was mentioned in our previous video, which I recommend watching to anyone who wants to understand why blockchain is not anonymous. The figures I saw made me reread the page twice. In 2025, illegal cryptocurrency addresses received at least $154 billion. $154 billion. That's a 162% increase over the previous year. And most significantly, Chainalysis emphasizes that this is a lower bound estimate because they only count addresses that have already been identified as illegal. The real figure is almost certainly higher. But here's what's really important for our topic. The overwhelming driver of this growth is not lone hackers or darknet marketplaces. The main driver is the circumvention of sanctions at the state level. In February 2025, Russia launched a token pegged to the ruble, through which more than $93 billion passed in less than a year. This is not some kind of underground project. It is a functioning financial infrastructure linking Russian interests with counterparties in China, Southeast Asia, and Iran. Venezuela and Iran also use stablecoins as their main channel for circumventing banking restrictions. cryptocurrency has become a tool of geopolitics. At the same time, 84% of all illegal transactions now go through stablecoins, not through Bitcoin, not through Monero, through stablecoins. This is logical. They are stable, easily convertible, and universally accepted. But this also makes them vulnerable, because stablecoins, unlike decentralized cryptocurrencies, have an issuer, and this issuer can freeze any wallet if it receives the appropriate signal. Chinese money laundering networks are a separate chapter in this story. So-called guarantee markets are platforms that act as intermediaries between sellers and buyers of illegal services. These services have processed billions of dollars, connecting cryptocurrency with a traditional financial system. They function as critical infrastructure. Money from fraud, drug trafficking, and cyber attacks passes through them, and at the exit, it turns into clean bank transfers. According to Chainalysis, these networks processed $16.1 billion in 2025 alone. That's $44 million a day, through nearly 1,800 active wallets. And most of this infrastructure operates through Telegram. But we'll talk about that later. And this is where those whom I call the true arbiters of the shadow economy come into play. Blockchain analytics companies. Chainalysis is the most well-known, but by no means the only one. TRM Labs, Elliptic, and a number of others work alongside it. The essence of their work can be explained simply. They have created a system that attaches invisible labels to cryptocurrency wallets. As soon as a wallet comes into view, linked to a Darknet marketplace, used in a money laundering scheme, receiving funds from a sanctioned person, it is given a so-called black mark. And this mark does not disappear. It remains forever and is visible to every exchange, every exchanger, every payment service that uses the analytics of these companies. On August 20th, 2025, TRM Labs launched the Beacon Network. When I first read about it, I realized that the rules of the game had changed for good. The Beacon Network is a real-time system that connects the world's largest crypto exchanges, law enforcement agencies, and independent researchers into a single network. Among the founders are Coinbase, Binance, PayPal, Kraken, Ripple, and Stripe, plus special services from more than a dozen countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and South Korea. How does it work? A verified investigator, whether an FBI agent, exchange analyst, or even an independent crypto detective, flags a suspicious address. The system automatically tracks all movements of funds from that address on the blockchain. As soon as the flagged money hits any of the connected platforms, that platform instantly receives a notification. No human involvement, no delays, in real time. And the platform can freeze the funds before the criminal has a chance to withdraw them. In its first cases, Beacon Network helped freeze $1.5 million in a global fraud case. The funds were intercepted within minutes of being flagged. In another case, $800,000 was returned to the victims. We are talking about speeds that were previously unthinkable. Previously, investigating crypto crimes took months. Now the system responds faster than a criminal can press the withdrawal button. To give you an idea of the scale, according to TRM Labs, since 2023, at least $47 billion in cryptocurrency has been sent to addresses linked to fraud, and 2025 was a record year for theft, with more than $2/3 billion stolen from the crypto ecosystem. The hack of the Bybit exchange in February 2025 alone brought hackers nearly $1.5 billion. The stolen funds went through more than 10,000 transactions in the first month after the attack. But here's what struck me the most. With all this power, all these billions in algorithms, blockchain analytics can predict events in the real world. Chainalysis found that a decline in crypto payments to Chinese sellers of fentanyl precursors on the Darknet predicted a real decline in overdose deaths in the United States, 3 to 6 months in advance. Money on the blockchain became an indicator of life and death for people on the other side of the planet. Algorithms have learned to keep track of money, but in the meantime, someone else has appeared. Someone who is still working inconsistently, but is already changing the rules of the game. Imagine a supervisor who never sleeps, never takes a holiday, never gets tired. Analyses millions of pieces of data simultaneously and gets a little smarter every day. Sounds like the perfect control tool, but it has one problem. It doesn't yet understand what it's looking at. And sometimes it makes mistakes. Artificial intelligence in 2026 is not something from the future. It is already here. It is already inside the system. But it has not yet become a full-fledged supervisor. Rather, it is an intern who has been allowed access to the control panel, but is not yet trusted to make decisions on its own. Let's start with what the neural network does on the side of those who are watching. One of Tor's key vulnerabilities has always been in what is known as traffic correlation. The idea is simple. If you simultaneously see someone sending data to an entry node and someone receiving data from an exit node, and the timing coincides, you can link the sender to the recipient with a certain degree of probability. Previously, this required enormous computing power and control over a significant portion of the network. But machine learning has changed the equation. Modern analytical systems are capable of processing large amounts of network data and finding patterns that the human eye would never notice. The difference in time in fractions of a second, the characteristic sizes of data packets, the rhythm of requests, all this creates a unique fingerprint of the user. Tools such as Onion Trace use machine learning algorithms to correlate traffic entering and leaving the network with high accuracy. And the more data that passes through the system, the more accurate it becomes. Fingerprinting is developing in parallel, a technology for identifying users based on indirect characteristics of their devices. The set of installed fonts, screen resolution, browser configuration, even graphics rendering speed. All of this forms a digital fingerprint that remains unique even when you use Tor. Neural networks are already capable of matching these fingerprints, finding the same user in different sessions on different platforms. Another area is what are known as AI firewalls. This concept is being actively developed, but is still far from widespread implementation. The idea is that artificial intelligence would analyze not only traffic, but also intentions. It would not simply record that someone is accessing a particular server, but would try to understand why. It would identify abnormal behavior, predict attacks before they start, and automatically block suspicious activity. It sounds impressive, but in practice, these systems still generate too many false positives and are too easily circumvented by those who understand how they work. And this is where the most interesting part begins. Because neural networks are not the monopoly of one side, the same technologies used by special services and analytical companies are also available to those they are hunting. In 2026, generative artificial intelligence will be fully integrated into the arsenal of cybercriminals. It will create convincing phishing emails that are impossible to distinguish from the real thing. It will generate deepfake voices and videos for fraudulent schemes. It will automate reconnaissance, scanning thousands of potential victims simultaneously. According to Chainalysis, fraudulent operations using neural networks extract an average of $3.2 million per operation, 4.5 times more than those who work without neural networks. Their daily income is almost 10 times higher, and the number of transactions is 9 times greater. Therefore, neural networks do not simply assist fraudsters, they industrialize them. But there is another vector that few people talk about. Organizations are increasingly giving neuroagents their own accounts and access rights. These non-human employees work around the clock, processing requests and managing processes, and they have become the perfect target. Neuroagents do not undergo multi-factor authentication. It does not notice suspicious contexts, and if an attacker learns how to manipulate its input data, and prompt injection techniques already allow this, they can force the agent to leak confidential information or perform an action that a human would never approve. This creates a paradox. The neural network simultaneously strengthens both sides, those who are watching and those who are being watched. It is an arms race with no clear winner yet. Special services are getting tools to de-anonymize Tor users. Criminals are getting tools to scale their attacks, and both sides are using the same technologies, sometimes literally the same models. But here's what I realized when I put all this data together. Artificial intelligence has not yet become a fully fledged observer. It is too unstable, too unpredictable, too easily deceived. It is a powerful tool, but not yet an arbiter. People and their algorithms on the blockchain remain the arbiters. AI only enhances their capabilities. But while corporations and special services were fine-tuning their algorithms, the Darknet itself began to leak into a place where all these systems still work much worse. The Darknet is no longer hiding in Tor. It has moved to where it is least likely to be found, in an app that is installed on the phones of half the population of Eastern Europe and Asia, in a messaging service used by your parents, your colleagues, your friends. And that is perhaps the most alarming part of my investigation. When I first started digging into this topic, I was sure that the story of the Watcher was a story about Tor, nodes, and blockchain. But the deeper I delved, the clearer it became. While analysts and special services were building their panopticon within the anonymous network itself was quietly losing its monopoly. Criminals were leaving. Not for another anonymous network. Not for I2P or Freenet. They were leaving for Telegram. The first serious warning sign came in 2023, when the FBI and Europol shut down Genesis Market, a platform that specialized in selling digital fingerprints. Complete browser profiles, session cookies, saved passwords, everything you need to log into someone else's account, as if you were the owner. To put it in perspective, a single fingerprint like this allows you to bypass multi-factor authentication. No hacking, no password guessing. Just load someone else's profile into your browser, and the system thinks you are them. The shelf life of such a fingerprint is measured in hours, but those hours are enough to empty a corporate account or break into a banking system. Many expected that after Genesis closed, demand would simply evaporate. Instead, something else happened. Within a few weeks, hundreds of micro-markets appeared on Telegram. Private channels, closed groups, automated bots that accepted payment and delivered goods without a single word from a real person. A decentralized network of brokers, each controlling their own small piece of the business. Close one channel, and 10 new ones would appear. It was the moment when the Darknet model changed forever, and researchers took note. Telegram enabled the transition from centralized marketplaces to distributed broker networks with no single point of failure, but the true scale became clear later. At the end of 2025 and beginning of 2026, the analytics company Elliptic published a study that caused the cybersecurity industry to clutch its head in horror. The two largest Chinese language platforms on Telegram, Tudu Guarantee and Xinbi Guarantee, process nearly $2 billion a month. Not a year, a month. They were used for money laundering, selling stolen data, fake documents, hacking tools, phishing kits, and deep fake creation tools. And those are just two platforms. There are dozens of them in the ecosystem. For comparison, the entire classic Darknet, all Tor marketplaces combined, generated an estimated $2 billion in revenue for the whole of 2024. Telegram platforms make the same amount in a single month. The scale is incomparable. And it's not just about money, it's about architecture. A classic Darknet marketplace is a centralized platform. It has servers, administrators, and a single point of failure. Special services can seize the servers, arrest the operators, and the platform disappears. With Telegram, everything is different. Each channel is a separate cell. Each cell has its own operator, its own rules, its own customer base. They are connected horizontally through a system of mutual guarantees and recommendations, but they do not have a single center. It is not a market. It is a network of markets, and closing it down entirely is a task of a fundamentally different order of complexity. Why Telegram? There are several reasons. First, accessibility. To access the Darknet marketplace, you need to download Tor browser, find the current link, register, and figure out the interface. That's a barrier. Everyone has Telegram. Download it, find the channel, write to the bot. Done. Second, speed. Creating a new channel on Telegram takes a few minutes. Deploying a bot for automatic trading takes a few hours. Third, audience size. Telegram has hundreds of millions of users worldwide. Criminal activity hides among legitimate traffic like a needle in a haystack. And finally, automation. Chinese language networks have perfected the process. Automatic translation, automatic escrow, automatic verification of counterparties. These are industrial-scale B2B operations. In May 2026, the U.S. Department of the Treasury, through FinCEN, officially recognized the Cambodian group Huione, an entity linked to the Telegram platform Hawang Guarantee, as a money laundering threat. This was the first time the U.S. government had openly identified a Telegram-based marketplace as a threat to national security. Not a Darknet marketplace, not an underground forum, a Telegram channel. At the same time, attempts to bring order within Telegram itself have yielded mixed results. After Pavel Durov's arrest in France in 2024, Telegram announced its willingness to cooperate more closely with law enforcement agencies and to hand over the phone numbers and IP addresses of suspects. Many criminals became nervous. Discussions began on forums about switching to other platforms, Signal, Session, even back to Tor. But the panic was short-lived. In early 2025, Telegram did indeed block the two largest platforms. There was a brief decline in activity, but then the volumes not only recovered, they grew. Tudu Guarantee and Xinbi Guarantee took the place of the closed platforms and became even bigger. Researchers noted that most criminals did not leave Telegram. They simply regrouped. The system proved to be anti-fragile. Every blow makes it stronger. And here's what's remarkable. Despite all this migration, the classic Darknet is not dead. It continues to exist. Russian market and its counterparts still dominate the sale of stolen credentials. Torzon is growing after the fall of Abacus. Forums such as Dread and Exploit remain centers of coordination. But the role of the Darknet has changed. It is no longer the only stage. Now it is one of several platforms in an ecosystem that is increasingly distributed between Tor and Telegram. This means that surveillance must also be distributed, and those who are watching now need to look in both directions at the same time. Here's what happens. Tor tracks you through nodes and algorithms. Your money is marked on the blockchain. Every action you take leaves a digital footprint. In Telegram, this whole surveillance machine is still working much less effectively. There is no control over routing nodes. There is no transparency of transactions within the platform. There is no single point that can be monitored. Criminals understood this before analysts did. And then I asked myself one last question. The throne is empty. The nodes are under surveillance. The money is marked. The platforms are migrating. So who is really in charge? The answer turned out to be scarier than any king. Because what you see on the Darknet in the year 2026 is not a person. It is not an organization. It is not even a single state. It is architecture. When I began this investigation, I was looking for a name, a pseudonym, a person sitting somewhere in a dark room pulling the strings. But months of work led me to a conclusion that is both simpler and more frightening. The watcher is the system itself. Distributed, multi-layered, belonging to no one in particular, but controlling practically everything. Let's put the picture together. The first layer is the physical infrastructure, Tor nodes through which all anonymous traffic passes. Most of them are located in countries that are members of intelligence alliances. 10 major operators control half of the outgoing traffic. Unknown actors such as KAX17 have been planting hundreds of fake servers in the network for years. And Tor's very existence depends on grants from the same government that is trying to hack it. The second layer is financial oversight. Chainalysis, TRM Labs, and their Beacon network system have created an infrastructure in which every cryptocurrency transaction can be tracked, flagged, and blocked in real time. $154 billion in illegal transactions per year, and the algorithms see every penny. Stablecoins, through which 84% of illegal transactions pass, can be frozen by the issuer at a single signal. The illusion of financial anonymity in cryptocurrency is just that, an illusion. The third layer is artificial intelligence. It is still unstable and prone to errors, but it is already capable of correlating traffic, creating digital fingerprints of users, and analyzing behavior patterns on a scale that is inaccessible to humans. It is becoming more accurate every year. And at the same time, every year it gives more opportunities to those it monitors. It is an arms race in which both opponents are running on the same track. And the fourth layer is migration. The Darknet flows from Tor to Telegram, where surveillance systems are still weaker. But the word "still" is key here, because the same companies, the same algorithms, and the same special services are already beginning to establish control there as well. The U.S. Treasury Department recognizes Telegram platforms as a threat to national security. Analysts track crypto flows passing through Telegram channels. Durov's arrest showed that no platform owner is beyond reach. The question is not whether Telegram will be placed under surveillance. The question is when. Here's what I've realized over the past few months. The Darknet in 2026 is like a glass house. The walls are still standing, and from the inside, it seems like no one can see you. But from the outside, your every move is being tracked. By nodes, by algorithms, by blockchain, artificial intelligence, corporations that make money by making the invisible visible, and special services that finance this anonymity with one hand and methodically destroy it with the other. For those who think they can get away with it and remain undetected, I have bad news. The system doesn't catch everyone at once. It doesn't work instantly, but it works constantly. It accumulates data. It refines algorithms. It waits. And when the time comes, and it always comes, it already has everything it needs. Every transaction, every network login, every digital fingerprint. People who thought they had fooled the system simply haven't realized yet that the system figured them out long ago. There are no more kings. There is a panopticon, an invisible prison where prisoners do not know they are being watched and continue to behave as if they were free. Servers, algorithms, and corporations. These are the watchers of the Darknet in the year 2026. You cannot hide from them behind a pseudonym. You cannot hide behind encryption. You cannot escape to another platform. My name is Mr. Dark Web, and I will ask you only one question. You are reading this now with the feeling that this is a story about someone else. About criminals, about hackers, about people from the Darknet. But the same nodes through which drug traffickers' traffic passes also pass your traffic. The same algorithms that flag fraudsters' wallets also analyze your transactions. The same AI that learns to de-anonymize Tor users' processes data about everyone who has ever accessed the anonymous network. Are you sure you're not being watched right now?